WFM 91.7.
I welcome you to Women Lives Matter on Women Radio WFM 91.7. Women Lives Matter is a program where we discuss things that relate to women, particularly with reference to sexual and gender-based violence. My name is Somto Titilayo Ajama once again, and today we're discussing accessing support for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. Women Lives Matter is an initiative of Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center in partnership with Women Radio 91.7 and funded by Ford Foundation. In many societies, it is believed that women and girls have less power than men over their bodies, decisions, and even resources. There are many forms of abuse, and all of them can have serious physical and emotional effects. It is estimated that 1 in 3 women has experienced intimate partner violence or sexual violence in their lifetime. It is also important to note that responding to sexual and gender-based violence is integral to improving service provisions for survivors. Today on Women Lives Matter, Barrister Olusegun Ayola, Executive Director of Organization for Public Awareness on Child and Women's Rights, is here to enlighten us on accessing support for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. Hello, Barrister Olusegun. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad that you're here. Today we're discussing accessing support for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. And I believe that Barrister Olusegun Ayola will do justice to this subject. And if you want to hear more on this, if you're interested in this and you have opinions on this, then make sure to send in your thoughts and observations or messages to 0703 175 6537. 0703 175 6537. You can also call in. Call in, let's hear your voice as you speak on this subject. You can call in to 07000 917 917. 07000 917 917. Women Lives Matter, once again, is an initiative of Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center in partnership with Women Radio 91.7 and funded by Ford Foundation. All right, now coming to you, Barrister Olusegun. To a large extent, sexual and gender-based violence is not new anymore in our society. It's sad, but it's the reality of what it is today. So let me ask you this. How much will you say this society has supported victims of sexual and gender-based violence, especially in your community? Let's start with yours.
All right, thank you very much. Well, why highlighting some recent developments that have taken place in respect to support of sexual gender-based violence victims in my community, I want to talk about the just concluded project of WOTC, in which our organization conducted in Egbedo local government in Osun State, with specification to Ojo and Ara community, a project on solidarity, accountability, and ending violence in Osun State. In respect to this question, the committee more supportive to the victims of sexual gender-based violence, we selected in each of the 2 communities in which our organization works in 5 community response team members that that are involved in grassroots sensitization, mobilization, and campaign against sexual gender-based violence, and they are the reporting team that victims go to report, and even sometimes when the victims go to the traditional rulers and community leaders to report the issue of sexual gender-based violence, these are the people that takes up the matter. So in my own view, the society, the NGOs are doing a great deal in ending sexual gender-based violence and in supporting of the victims. Also, the state has enacted relevant laws against sexual gender-based violence. What we are praying more to happen is the implementation of the laws. because there are laws. And this is the support the state government has given so far. And the laws are quite good enough to discourage anyone from perpetrating the menace.
All right. I'm really glad you talked about the laws. I'm glad that you talked about the community sensitization. And I would like to ask why you think implementation is the problem. What do you think are the challenges currently with implementation of these laws that already exist?
Well, the challenges to the implementation largely is, I want to say the income. I mean, the security officers, particularly the police, that are supposed to implement this law, they are sometimes biased, and many of them are not well trained to know how to interrogate and attend to cases of how to question people with that have violated the victims of violence, how to approach them, how to discuss, to question them, to make the environment, conducive, and be willing for the victims to be willing to prosecute the matter. They are not so trained in this regard, and this is a great challenge to end sexual gender-based violence.
All right. So I hear what you've said so far, and then there's just so many things that I want to ask, but I think I'll just break it down little by little so that we can get to the bottom line. So in the course of recent activities, the fact that in the course of recent happenings, too many cases of sexual and gender-based violence, too many cases of even a lot of children being molested and different things are happening. And then it feels like there's not much that's being done. I'm going to come from the angle of the society now. How can the society support these people that have been violated, ladies, these people that have been inflicted this level of mental and physical abuse on? So how can the society support and protect victims of the sexual and gender-based violence?
The way the society can support is by saying something when they say something. We should be our neighbors' keepers. Apart from immediate rescue of the victims of violence, there should be prompt reports to relevant offices and for proper follow-up. This is very important. If we are our neighbor's keeper, the continual perpetration of sexual gender-based violence will come to a very minimal level.
All right. So you're seeing follow-up. They should report these to the relevant authorities, and they should also follow up. How about in cases where it's somebody from within the family or someone that is close to the family that committed this crime? Sometimes even the people within the family are not willing to prosecute. They're not willing to report. And if they're willing to report, they don't want to take it to court at the end of the day. They just want it to die down a natural death. So what would you say about people like that? How can the society enable them to be protected, particularly because you never really know what will happen outside of that? It's one thing to catch somebody and try to protect the victim from that person for that time being that they've been caught. But if they're not taken away from that situation, then Barrister Olusegun, you'd agree with me that such a situation can continue to occur and it will further traumatize the victim. So how can the society protect the victim, particularly in cases when the victim is within the home or within the family setting?
Like I said earlier, if there is an established and efficient monitoring and reporting team, if the victim herself is not reporting and another person sees it and reports to the appropriate authority, the matter will be taken up. But like you said, most of the time, the family wants to cover up, and that is the challenges. the NGOs in this line are facing. When they're interested in prosecuting a matter, and the victim herself said she's no longer interested in prosecuting, then you become handicapped because our law did not, give us the power to impose litigation on any victim. So we have to let it go, and sometimes they settle it out of court. So that is the limitation of the law that we are operating in. We cannot impose litigation on any victim.
So
and this is the result of the family ties that we have in Africa.
Yes.
And it's really a challenge to ending sexual gender-based violence. But however, if we get a report from a third party and the victim herself and the family are willing to prosecute, we have NGOs in the state that render pro bono services to such victims.
Thank you so much for that, Barrister Olusegun. 16 minutes past 2 on Women Radio 91.7. This is still Women Lives Matter. And today on Women Lives Matter, we're discussing accessing support for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. This topic is very important to be discussed, and I'm glad that we're doing this. My guest today is Barrister Olusegun Ayola, Executive Director of Organization for Public Awareness on Child and Women's Rights. Women Lives Matter is an initiative of Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center, Ward C, in partnership with Women Radio 91.7 and funded by Ford Foundation. Once again, accessing support for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence is what we're discussing today. I'm Sumto Titilayo Ajaman. If you're just tuning in, you're welcome. Please feel free to call in and contribute on the program. 07000 917 917 is the number to call. 07000 917 917. Of course, you can also call in. You can also send a message. You can also send in a text or a WhatsApp message to 0703 175 6537. 0703 175 6537. Now, if you're listening live or you would like to listen live, go onto the website www.wfm917.com or download the mobile app WFM 917 on Google Play Store and on iOS as well. All right. So you've talked about what is important when it comes to how the society can play a role. But in recent times, people have safe homes for survivors. People have developed this particular idea because they feel that survivors of sexual and gender-based violence need it. What do you think about this initiative? Do you think it's something that could actually create that support?
Thank you very much. The recent initiative of having a safe home is a very brilliant idea and very commendable. But how many of such homes do we have in Osun State? I'm aware there is an ongoing safe home in Osun State. I don't know whether maybe the idea is from the state government or from a private NGO, but I had something like that recently at the workshop that I attended, that there is going to be a safe home in Osun but is yet to be commissioned. So as I speak to you now, I don't know of any. But I've heard about Mirabel Center in Lagos, and I'm aware of Moremi in Ekiti State. But in Osun State, I'm not yet very sure that the safe home that is going on is ready to accommodate victims of survivors.
All right. I appreciate the honesty because it's important to note that it's a situation where you can receive support, but you're saying that you don't know if it's available in Osun State. So yes, thank you very much for that. But in general, the idea, do you buy into it? Do you think this is something that more states should develop, and why?
It is a very brilliant idea. It's very commendable. You see, in some situations, we have seen cases in which we rescue a victim from violence after giving psychosocial support,
supporting the victims financially. We still release the victim to the same environment where she was violated. That is a big challenge to us. If there is a home where the victim can stay for just a short period of time, to get over a traumatized experience, where she can be, supported in all areas where she needed support, it should be a good one to give a permanent solution to such challenges the survivor may be facing. But in the present situation that we are in, I don't know. We sometimes have to, discuss with the victim to look for a place, maybe a relative who will be ready to accommodate her for, a short period of time, where we sometimes invite even the husband, the perpetrator. We invite when the victim is not, that's this case, this is never explained to you, when the victim is not ready to prosecute the matter.
Of course.
So when the victim is not ready to prosecute the matter, sometimes we invite, we petition the husband, then we bring the husband, we counsel the husband, sometimes some issues are resolved that way. But I don't think there is a safe move. There are some cases that we find it difficult to resolve. In such situation, the advice we give to the survivor is to look for a place where she will be accommodated.
Thank
that
you.
Is not good enough.
Of course. Do you think people are aware of this, the Safe Home Initiative? Do you think it's popularized or publicized well enough?
I didn't get it.
The Safe Home Initiative. Do you think enough people know about this? Do you think it's popularized or publicized well enough to draw attention to it and to keep it at the front of people's minds?
Well, when the state home is not yet, when we don't know about it, how can we publicize it to what we don't know of its existence? Like I told you, I don't know of any presently, but if we know of any, we sensitize the public on the availability.
Absolutely.
We get the public to know about it if there is. But presently, I don't know of any.
Thank you. It's a terrible situation when some have and then some don't. I understand issues that revolve around funding, revolve around access to a good location and all of that. But it is so important to note that sexual and gender-based violence, particularly for women and girls, makes no sense, and it actually waits for no man. So this is why action needs to be taken now. And when I say now, I mean now, like yesterday. So yes, it is imperatively important. And now let's come to the subject of first responders, Barrister Olusegun. Now, first responders are those people, they take your calls, they go through your request, and they do their very best to get you the attention that you need at that point in time, to at least come to your rescue at that point in time. How easy is it to access these first responders, particularly as it relates to SGBV, and how responsive are they? Do they really respond on time? Do they provide solutions?
All right, thank you very much. You see, like I said earlier, in many settings, police officers that are, gender desk officer do not have sufficient specialized service training, like I said, particularly in communicating appropriately with traumatized clients. So in a situation like this, when a report is made to the police station, sometimes the way the case should be handled, the cases are not handled professionally, because even the responders are not well trained to give their services. But in some cases, in some situations like NGOs, when NGO takes up such cases on behalf of victims pro bono, what we discuss with them is, are you interested in litigation or not? If they are interested in investigation, there are so many NGOs in the state that are willing to support and take up matters of sexual gender-based violence. Like the community response team that I told you about, that we that we established in 2 communities in Egedore local government, they are very responsive and they are very prompt to action because they are the grassroots people. Once there is an issue of sexual gender-based violence in the community, even a third party report to them, and they go to the scene of the violence immediately. There was a particular case that happened around 11 p.m. in the night. It was a neighbor that reported the case to one of the CLC members, and he went out of our home that late hour of the day to attend. He just put a call through to one of the CLC to join, so that 2 people went, and they addressed the situation and they restored peace to the home. Imagine if people like that are not in the community. No police officer, no police will open the door to you at 11 p.m. to make a report. So the community response with handling the cases of sexual gender-based violence from the grassroots is very, very important. It's key.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In a lot of ways, actually. So your point is very, very valid. Now, these first responders do their absolute best when it comes to at least fulfilling expectations, managing expectations, and even providing support and solutions at least as much as they can to these survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. So it is one arm of the support system. It's one arm of the entire picture that plays a huge role. So we're talking more on accessing support for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, and this is still Women Lives Matter. So if you're just tuning in, welcome to Women Lives Matter. Women Lives Matter is an initiative of Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center, WADC, in partnership with Women Radio 91.7 and funded by Forward Foundation. Now call in and let's hear your thoughts on accessing support for sexual and gender-based violence. How much support do you think they need? And what is the best way to provide support for survivors of SGBV? This is so important. 07000 917 917 is the number to call. 07000 917 917. You can also send in a text or a WhatsApp message to 0703 175 6537. 0703 175 6537. All right. So there's another aspect to this, which is stigma and discrimination. You would agree with me that a lot of times when people know about your story, you get one of 2 responses. Sometimes you get people that are saying, "Oh, Barrister Olusegun, I'm using you as an example in this case." I'm using you as an example. Thank you so much. So, and they're telling you, "Oh, I'm so inspired by your story," and they're asking you all of these positive questions. But sometimes you share your story, and all of a sudden, it feels like you're carrying some kind of plague. You're being discriminated against. There's all this stigma around you. So, what are the guiding principles now when it comes to a survivor? When it comes to a survivor center, and by that I mean some of these shelters, some of these homes, to avoid stigmatization and discrimination, to prevent these survivors from having to face all of that?
Thank you very much. You see, there is need for rigorous awareness creation. People need to be sensitized. People need to know that speaking out does not mean you should be, stigmatized or discriminated against. Speaking out implies you have been violated, your right has been infringed. It's just like speaking out when your property is stolen. Mm-hmm. That is how society should see it. But it's unfortunate that people do not see it that way. So I want to say that there is need for aggressive and rigorous creation of awareness on the need for people to understand the meaning of sexual gender-based violence. So that when we all have the understanding of what it is, we will not discriminate or stigmatize people who speak out that they have been violated, who speak out that their rights have been infringed. But most importantly, when we are handling the cases of sexual gender-based violence, we, as an organization, treat it with serious caution. Mm-hmm. And we are very discreet about it because the identity of the victims must be protected, and that we do. So once a story has been told of someone being violated,
yes,
the person, even the court does not allow, it is not compulsory for the victim to appear in court, except you don't mind to appear. It's not compulsory you appear because the prosecutor takes up your case and a lawyer stands in place for the survivor. To monitor the proceeding, to watch brief, so that, the case is not maneuvered negatively against the survivor. And that is where we have some NGOs on ground that does that. So the best way to get rid of this stigmatization and discrimination against sexual gender-based violence victims is to make the society understand the principles surrounding it.
Thank you so much. That part you just mentioned is so important, particularly because without this knowledge, they will not realize that this stigmatization and discrimination is wrong. So I agree with you 100% on that one. So there's so much that needs to be done. And it is important to note that the government also needs to do something. We can't keep, putting it all to survivor centers or organizations like yours or Ward C. We can't keep doing that. We need to hold the government accountable as well on some level. So what is the role of the government now when it comes to providing this support to SGBV survivors? Because, like it or not, we cannot say that as much as the efforts from non-governmental organizations have been good, it has still not been able to end SGBV. So what is the role of the government in providing support to these survivors and, of course, eventually, which is the larger picture, ending the scourge of sexual and gender-based violence?
Thank you very much. You see, government should ensure implementation of relevant laws that are existing in the state. There's also need for loud and consistent sensitization of the laws to the general public. Like, for instance, in Osun State, we had this law prohibiting female genital mutilation since 2004. How many people are aware of the law? Osun State is still rated among the highest states in Nigeria that have still, practicing female genital mutilation. In 2013, there is a law that is titled Protection Against Domestic Violence in Osun State. How many people are aware of this law? And last year, the present administration of Governor Oyetola passed into law Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law 2021. But how popular is this law? Not until recently that a WASIC project was conducted in Osun State, that the simplified version of that Violence Against Persons Prohibition laws was, distributed to, communities. A lot of people do not know. And it was even that medium that we use in, sensitizing people on the protection against domestic violence law. And even the female genital mutilation, law prohibiting female genital mutilation that has been passed in 2004. So there is need for aggressive sensitization of the public. And the government can assist on, by using social media, by using radio, TV, sensitization, like that, to make, a lot of people listen to radio in this part of the community more than they watch TV programs. Just like this, the daily news that people listen to, they should incorporate it into their practice to make it a thing, a compulsory thing that people must hear and know about. So the role of government in the support of survivors of sexual gender violence cannot be overemphasized. In fact, we are just supporting the government to do its work as NGOs. It should be more on the part of the government.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. And this is 26 minutes to 3 on Women Radio 91.7, and this is still this is still Women Lives Matter. Now, so important is the subject we're discussing today, accessing support for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. If you've ever been in this situation, you would realize how important it is for support to be provided to survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. These people have been violated in a lot of ways, and they need to be rehabilitated back into society, and they need all the support that they can get. In case you're just tuning in, you're welcome. This is Women Radio 91.7, and this is Women Lives Matter. Women Lives Matter is an initiative of Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center in partnership with Women Radio 91.7 and funded by Ford Foundation. I'm Semto Titilayo Ajama, and today I'm speaking with Barrister Olusegun Ayola, Executive Director of Organization for Public Awareness on Child and Women's Rights. 07000 917 917 is the number to call to contribute on the program. 07000 917 917 is the number to call. You can also send in a text or a WhatsApp message to 0703 175 6537. 0703 175 6537. All right. Now I'm coming back to you, Barrister Olusegun. Now, what are the types of support that should be given to survivors of sexual and gender-based violence by individuals? So we've talked about the government. We've also talked about society. Now we're narrowing it down to you and I as individuals. How can we support survivors of sexual and gender-based violence?
Thank you very much. The kind of support the survivor needs depends on which area or what type of violence the survivor suffered. And apart from rescuing the survivor, there is need for psychosocial support, like I said, depending on the nature of the violence.
Yes.
There is need for rescue. There is need for financial support if it is economic deprivation or violence the victim suffered. Giving financial support to somebody that is economically violated is a way of, letting the vulnerability of being abused another time. And it also will restore our self-dignity and dignity. But in the case of somebody who has no shelter, if there is provision of shelter by the state government or by NGOs, is a good one. So the support survivor gets depends on which area or what type of violence he or she suffers.
All right. So how can individuals play a role in rendering this support, whether financial, whether psychosocial? How can we as individuals support these people?
As individual, somebody who has been psychologically abused needs a psychosocial support. A kind of, counseling that will restore her self-esteem, that will make her feel loved and important, so that she can relate freely, as though nothing has really happened to her that made her different from every other person. And for somebody that needs financial support and is giving some money to restore her business, I said everything will be restored. That is what I think.
Thank you so much. This support goes way beyond, way beyond just what it is that we're saying today. It goes way beyond that, because these people have been violated in a lot of ways, and these survivors definitely need to move on. Just like you said, they need to move on so much that we shouldn't be able to say that, oh, this happened to them and this was a part of their story. Even in as much as...
Sorry to cut you short. There is also need to get justice for the victim. If it is a case, if it is something that the victim is interested in, or if it is a case of sexual abuse, or even physical abuse, there is need to get justice. When a victim gets justice, she feel much relief of traumatized experience she has gone through.
Yes. And in the community specifically now, we cannot say that some of the people who propagate all the rumors, all the talk, all the conversations that lead to discrimination and stigmatization are not members of the community, because they are. There are people around us that start all these things. There are people around us that refuse to engage these other people in regular conversation or as a part of the community anymore because they've been violated. So how can community leaders step in situations like this to provide support to them and to also assist in a way that they are not segregated or discriminated from the rest of society?
And this is why I said there is need for education of the community. People should be so educated, sensitized, and be aware and know that sexual gender-based violence is a violation against one's rights, just like any other fundamental human rights embedded in the Nigerian Constitution. That if somebody right is infringed, like freedom of association, if your freedom of association is denied, the way you speak out, that you have the right to associate, if your liberty to live is being denied, that is the same way sexual gender-based violence, should be seen. If it is seen that way, then people will be able to, people will see it differently. And people will not have to, there won't be need for stigmatization and discrimination against victims. But we know that a victim's right that has been violated need to be restored, and the victims need to get justice for the crime that has been committed against our person, against it or our person. So community education is very important. And so the need for rigorous sensitization and campaign is very key.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that this rigorous sensitization and the campaigns, do you think this is a responsibility that the community leaders can shoulder?
It is actually, if you see our neighbor as our neighbor's keeper, we should see every situation happening in our community as something that will affect us directly or indirectly. So we should be looking to proper solution. Educating the community, even though it is not the primary responsibility of community leaders to do, to an extent, one could go out of his way to do certain things just to make peace, to bring peace. Look, for instance, now, when they just completed was the project we did. We went to church, we went to mosque, we educated the church, and we made them understand the need why this menace has to stop in the society. And even when we were not there, I'm sure the pastor will make the pastor and the imam see the reason why she should make it part of their preaching. We should see it as part of education that people must learn to understand. When we learn to understand what is right and what is wrong, we live in a peaceful society. The perpetrators are most often of sexual gender-based are people that are very close to us. A passerby will not jump through your window and break you in motor. And people will not come and will not jump through the window of your house, come and abuse you economically or psychologically. It happens within the home and within the community. And so when we are well enlightened and educated on the need to be our brother's keeper, by educating ourselves on what we need to know, I'm sure the survivor will get sufficient support and confidence to come out and speak. Because the survivor will not see it as a big deal or something that she needs to be stigmatized about.
Absolutely. Now, also as individuals, Barrister Olusegun, how do we begin to sensitize ourselves as individuals? Or let me put it this way. How do we begin to sensitize individuals on how best to approach cases of sexual and gender-based violence? So if you see or hear or suspect about a case that involves sexual and gender-based violence in your area, what is the right thing to do? What is the best way to approach this kind of case in a way that it can be resolved at the end of the day?
The way individual can, the best way individual can approach these cases of social-based violence is by regular campaigns through the social media. Everybody has the phone now. It's something you can throw on your, on the social media on regular basis through electronic media. Continuous awareness creation for clear attention of people on the matter. Then we should always, we can even do as individuals. You can just do community sensitization. You can do street work. You can do rally, street rally, community rally, just to get the attention of people. How best to approach cases of social violence.
Thank you so much. And then we're going to wrap up in a bit, but I'll read the phone lines again for those who might be interested in sending in a message or, of course, calling in. 07000 917 917 is the number to call. So feel free to call in, ask questions to my guest, and, of course, lend your voice on how to access support for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. The number to call is 07000 917 917. 07000 917 917. You can also send in a text or a WhatsApp message to 0703 175 6537. 0703 175 6537. What do you think about this one? Now, this is 14 minutes to 3, and we're still discussing accessing support for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. So a lot of cases have come up, a lot of cases will still come up, and it keeps increasing and increasing with every day that goes by. So there is definitely something radical, something aggressive that needs to be done as regards the complete eradication of sexual and gender-based violence. So now this is my question to you now as we round off. But before I ask you this particular question, in terms of law, because you mentioned implementation of laws earlier. In terms of law, how can individuals play a role? Now, I'm asking about this because sometimes we hear of witness statements that have been expunged, eyewitness statements that maybe they were not. It later proved not to be relevant, and things like that thrown out of the window in the middle of court proceedings, that the aim of these proceedings is to ensure justice for the survivor. So when you hear more and more of this kind of stories about Barrister Olusegun, as an individual, you're less and less inclined to want to contribute to the court process that might result in justice at the end of the day, because you don't know if it will actually result in justice or not. So how do we encourage individuals to be a part of the court processes if they have information, regardless of whether or not it will be accepted, as long as they feel they have something relevant to contribute?
Thank you very much. I must tell you sincerely, any case of special gender-based violence that reaches the court usually gets justice. Though our system is delayed, the justice is delayed. But there is sure justice if there are sufficient evidence to prove that the crime was actually committed. Mm-hmm. But the problem with individuals, sometimes let me give an example of the case of the rape, for instance. You will need medical report.
Yes. Sometimes
the doctor who is attending to a victim of rape does not want to associate with that case. He's just willing to treat the patient and let him or her go. But he's not ready to associate with the case because he does not want to stand as a witness because of our rigorous legal system. That is one. Then number two, how much of protection do we have for witnesses?
That's another important one, Barrister Olusegun.
How much of protection? I may stand as a witness today, and the next day, somebody starts talking me.
Mm-hmm.
So how safe I am? If I give a witness, and as a witness, you have to stand in the open court.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
To say what you see. That is another challenge. But more often than not, the statement of a victim, if it is rich enough to get justice, at least by our own experience in this organization, there hasn't been any case of GBV that has been thrown out of court without justice.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So it's basically
I appreciate that reassurance. Yes.
Court not sitting, a tutor not available in court can lie down. But at the end of the day, it's case. So about law today, I won't say another law should be promulgated because laws are not implemented.
Mm-hmm.
People should see victim of sexual gender-based violence as their family member, as their home person, and be willing to come out to do their best so that the society can be in peace.
Thank you so much, Barrister Olusegun. I'm really glad for that reassurance because it basically emphasizes the fact that in as much as the system is rigorous and it can be delayed, at the end of the day, more often than not, there's usually justice served. So thank you very much for that. So what is your final call to action for the government and for society as it relates to accessing support for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence?
Please, can you call me, please?
All right. What is your call to action for the government and for society in line with support for sexual and gender-based violence survivors?
All right. Thank you very much. I want to say that eliminating sexual gender-based violence is an act for all of us. The government and the private sector, the relevant ministries, law enforcement agents, the judiciary, and other stakeholders must add value to speedy response and actions of implementation of the law on sexual gender-based violence. We should see the implementation of the law more importantly, because we have sufficient law. Then the society needs to be watchful and be ready to report cases and even to strengthen the sensitization process to ensure that people get to the know and understand what actually sexual gender-based violence is all about. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Barrister Olusegun Ayola. Thank you very much. I really can't say thank you enough. You've been a very, very helpful guest, particularly with all the information that's needed. Thank you so much for spending time with us on Women Lives Matter.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please enjoy the rest of your day. Survivors of sexual and gender-based violence have a range of needs, and health responses play a vital role in care. Now, counseling sessions are very important, and this is what is referred to as psychosocial support, and these should be given to help sexual and gender-based violence survivors to be able to work through the trauma of their experiences and rebuild their lives in safety and in dignity. Now, this counseling helps survivors find ways that they can be empowered and relate with each other, and also cope with the devastating impact of displacement. And that's also a very important factor as well. Now, when children are involved, they're able to express their feelings and find healing through play therapy. That's also another important one. So very, very big thank you to my guest today for emphasizing on literacy and opportunities to earn a livelihood. That's where she talked about financial support, because it is so important that sexual and gender-based violence survivors become self-sufficient. Thank you again to my guest, Barrister Olusegun Ayola, Executive Director of Organization for Public Awareness on Child and Women's Rights. Thank you to you as well for tuning in to Women Lives Matter. Thank you to the producer, Esther Alaribe, and Executive Director, Tomu Okewale Shonaya. Women Lives Matter is broadcast every Monday at 2 p.m. on Women Radio 91.7. And let us join our hands together to end violence against women. Women Lives Matter is an initiative of Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center in partnership with Women Radio 91.7 and funded by Ford Foundation. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Sumto Titilayo Achama. Good afternoon.